Amplify your voice and be heard. Get to know your local business owner. It's Biz Talk on the Bizhub on Bay FM.
Yes, indeed, it is Biz Talk on the Bizhub on Bay FM 107.9, and every second week we are fortunate enough to be joined by a man who can assist you as an entrepreneur and as an employee, rather, with all your legal or labor law related matters. His name is Arno Swart, and he's from a phenomenal company called LabourNet, based in our beautiful sunny Gqeberha. My good sir, good evening.
Good evening, Tubz. Good to be back.
Man, it's great to be back, man. First show of the year. Ever so excited to have you, my good sir. And you know what? Today we're talking about something really interesting, because the reality is, man, December's been a very interesting period, and behaviors generally change. I'm actually excited to unpack on what we're talking about today. So by all means, my good sir, let's get straight into the crux of the matter.
Cool, Tubz. So the scenario we want to unpack today, and I get it a lot this time of year, and I think it's a widespread problem, is where a client would call and they would explain that they used to have the superstar that never needed checkups, the performance metrics were hit, the sales target were met, etc. Then comes a 3-week holiday in December, and the individual you receive back in January is just not the same person. The performance metrics is all of a sudden not met. Follow-ups are required. The sales metrics are not hit. And then the big question, well, what on earth do I do now? Because this is not the person I used to know. After 3 weeks, such a short time frame. And then begs the question, well, how do I deal with that situation? So that is actually a very interesting question. How does one deal with that situation? Because to be very honest, there's so many things that one needs to consider, especially as an employer, that you can't just up and say, hey, cheers, bye. There's processes to it, of course. There's legal implications to it. So how does one actually deal with such things? Now, of course, Tab. So there's a few processes that should be followed in terms of a poor work performance process. But before one gets to that point, got a bit of an unpopular opinion, which I learned from Simon Sinek. I'm a massive sucker for Simon Sinek talks and so forth. And what he learns is to be empathetic leaders first. And what that would entail in such a scenario would be to approach the person and say, look, let's for instance use a salesperson. It's your 3rd week, you're down on sales. This is not what we used to. Are you okay? Tell me what's happening in your life. As opposed to, you're down on your sales for the 3rd week. If you don't improve it in the next week, you're gone. It's the same message, but you show that you care for that person. And I'll explain why that works. So I've used this approach personally in our business. And what it does is twofold. First of all, sometimes the person did it subconsciously, and they all of a sudden wake up and they realize, let me get my spark back, and actually get the spark back. Alternatively, the second reason I follow that approach is, even if it does not then improve, it at least shows that individual that you're empathetic. It's not all about the numbers. You care about them as a human and so forth. But let me not pull wool over your eyes. It doesn't always work. And sometimes a week later, you then still find yourself in a spot where the same salesperson is still despondent, still not hitting targets and so forth. And that's when these processes start. So we refer to the process as poor work performance processes. And what this entails is a process that sets out for the employee what is their current performance looking like, what is the expectation from the employer side as to what that performance should look like, what is the disconnect between those two, and then how would we approach that on a way forward. So let's break that down practically. You then give this individual a notice to say, look, you're a salesperson, here's your sales targets, you haven't met it for the last 4 weeks. There'll then be a formal session which then unpacks, that was your sales targets, that was your performance, here were the metrics you were supposed to do in the week in order to hit those sales targets. That's what you actually did, the disconnect. And then in that process, one starts formally unpacking, what assistance do you require from the company? What guidance do you require? How frequently do you require check-ins, follow-ups, and so forth? But at the end of the day, a non-negotiable in that process is you must start hitting your targets. You must deliver what's expected from you. So the last part of that process is then, we then agree what assistance we can offer you as a company, how regular we'll have check-ins, how regular do you need guidance, instructions, assistance, and so forth. But then the important question is, by when are you going to hit those performance metrics? And that process then runs its course for that duration. Let's say a month was agreed upon as a review period for that performance metrics to be hit. At the end of that month, you're either sitting with a superstar employee, which happens 50% of the time, and you'll absolutely see that person fly, and that gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling in my heart. But 50% of the time, Tubz, that end of that road is hit, and that person is not improving at all. In fact, they actually kind of regressed slightly.
Okay.
And that's the point where a person then has to make the call. Is this terminable? In other words, there's no chance of this person improving their performance, so let's call it a day. No hard feelings. It's not your fault, employee, but you're just not cut for these performance metrics. And the alternative is, well, you've improved, not great, so I'm going to give you another review period. So either terminate employment, either give another review period, or you're sitting with a superstar employee. 50% of the time you get the superstar effect. The other 50% of the time it's either another review, which then eventually leads to a termination, or a termination immediately. And the sad part is, Tubz, it's not always the people you expected from. You might have had a superstar 6 months ago, but sometimes this process does follow its path, and eventually you have to terminate employment based on that poor work performance.
Sure. That is hectic. Okay. And from a termination point of view, of course, I mean, how does that generally work, especially when it comes to, labor law at large? I'm not getting too deep into it, of course, but actually it becomes a little bit tricky. You know what I mean? Because,
of course.
You can't just terminate. But I do understand that there's also metrics that one needs to follow around that. I don't want to use the term constructive dismissal, but to a certain degree, that could be seen as that, yeah?
100%.
Okay.
So, Tubz, you have to follow the processes, which, as I unpacked earlier, it does involve giving a notice. It does involve having that formal process, unpacking the disconnect in the performance versus expectation. It involves agreeing on what instructions, guidance, support, and so forth is required. It entails agreeing on the review period and so forth. But then a further milestone as well, when you come then to the end of this road and you then decide, well, there's no other choice than termination. A poor work performance termination is also what we know as a no-fault dismissal.
Okay.
In other words, legally speaking, it's not that employee's fault. They're doing everything they can. They're following everything they should. But the results are just not coming, especially in like the sales industry. It's cold, it's hard, there's sales or there's not. And because it's a no-fault dismissal, it's also one of those dismissals that carry with it a notice period. It's not as simple as, okay, we terminate you, boom, we never want to see you again. There is a notice period attached to it. It is a bit of a more empathetic termination and so forth, because legally speaking, it's not that person's fault. So there are those few hurdles to jump through before terminating such a person's employment. And I must say, for your average employer, it's a bit of a trickier process than let's call it a dismissal termination, and most likely you might need some expert assistance, whether through us or a lawyer friend or whatever the case may be. Not normally it's sort of process I'll advise an entrepreneur to jump into by themselves.
Hectic stuff. Well, WhatsApp actually coming through saying, hi, really great for insightful information. I've got a situation where a staff member, sorry, let me scroll down here, a staff member actually started speaking about or terribly about the business, putting the company into dispute at large. How do I deal with that? Now, before we actually jump into that, it's interesting. And I mean, I actually feel that is an entire conversation on its own. Ooh, I don't know. Can we table that?
I'm happy.
Oh, topic of the week. When we next post on it.
Let's do it.
I love it. I absolutely love it. That's okay, but do you want to give a quick tease on it?
We can put a toe in the water.
Okay.
If that's cool.
Okay.
In a nutshell, that won't relate to poor work performance. That will relate to misconduct.
Okay.
We'll unpack in the future session as to what type of misconduct it is, how do you prove it, how do you prove the disrepute for the company and so forth. But a very serious offence, disciplinary-wise, and normally leads to termination. But yeah, let's deal with it in a follow-up session. But it's definitely serious misconduct, but misconduct, that's a fault dismissal. That's not a no-fault dismissal like we're dealing with poor work performance.
Hectic stuff. All right, Margaret, so then going back to LabourNet as a company that provides turnkey solutions to entrepreneurs and businesses at large. I mean, let's have a brief overview again on the services that you render, but most importantly, where people can find you and how they can reach out and acquire your services.
So Tubz, we're an outsourced HR service provider. We got a different bouquet of products, which you can either use one product or you can put a bouquet together, ranging from labor law consulting to health and safety consulting to payroll consulting to transformation consulting. information compliance, which is your POPI and CPA and so forth. So whatever needs a company has, which they can't internalize due to size, cost, efficiency, and so forth, they then outsource to us to take that burden off them. And you then rest assured that it's dealt with by professionals for 9 out of 10 times cheaper than you can internalize the function in any event. And yeah, that's where we shine. Where to find us? In Gqeberha, we are located at 2 Allen Drive, Fairview, which is your old Fidelity building. We're also reachable on almost every social media, including LinkedIn and so forth. And anybody that wants to reach out to me personally can also pop me an email. My email address is aswart, ASWART, at labournet, LABOURNET.com. So that's aswart@labournet.com.
My good sir, again, bringing a wealth of knowledge and most importantly, assisting to empower entrepreneurs and employees in their journey of employment. Thank you so much. Exclusive to the Bizhub, catch him every second Tuesday as we talk all things labor. Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I
Tubz.
actually have something that I want to share. It came to me right now.
Go for it.
We're going to start something brand new. This year, we're going to call it #AskArno.
Cool. That's great.
I love it, man. I love it. Keep it locked right here. Coming up next, we're going to chat to the real travel guy who shares his closing quote for the day. And most importantly, then, my final thought as we part our show today. Keep it locked. But leading us to that,